right. We're all precious in God's sight. Everybody is somebody. Stop the violence. Save the children. Stop bullying. Save the children.
Hold your head high. Stick your chest out. You can make it. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive.
Hi, I'm Dr. Sonia Whitaker, National Education Policy Director for Push for Excellence. And on behalf of the Rainbow Push Coalition, we'd like to thank you so much for giving of your gift of time and joining us here on our Saturday morning forum. We'd like to thank Word Network for bringing you to us and us to you. And yet we recognize that there are many of you that are watching us right now on Facebook Live. If you're doing so, we'd like to ask that you like our page. And for the many of you that are watching us now on YouTube Live, we'd like to ask that you subscribe to our page so that you may gain immediate access to all of the content that we have in store for you. And speaking of content, we can't do this without you. We need your financial support, and we've made it really easy for you to give. In fact, you may choose from one of 3 different options. You can simply pick up that cell phone of yours right now and hold it to the QR code and give right on the spot. And if you prefer, you can take that same cell phone of yours and simply text the word push to 41444. Text push to 41444. Or you can simply go to our website at rainbowpush.org and click on the donate button. Now, whatever you do, do not move, do not touch that dial, because we're going to be right back. The push is on.
After months of sounding the alarm over the ongoing migrant crisis that has overwhelmed city agencies, some temporary relief now in sight. The Biden administration announced that it will grant nearly 500,000 Venezuelan migrants temporary protective status, which will allow them to live and work in the U.S. legally for up to 18 months. Those eligible would have to have arrived before July 31st. Cities like Chicago have long pleaded for federal help as the flow of migrants being sent from the border have inundated local resources. With Venezuelans accounting for more than a third of the 14,000 migrants currently in Chicago, the expectation is this announcement will lessen the pressure on the city, allowing these migrants to be less dependent, applying for temporary work permits, bypassing the 180-day waiting period. While advocates thank the president, they say this is an opportunity to do more.
It is time. We deserve work permits too. We have families too.
Immigrant leaders from the Resurrection Project and a number of elected officials are calling on the Biden administration to now level the playing field and grant parole and permanent work authorization for all immigrants, including the more than 11 million undocumented.
He can do this with a stroke of a pen. We've seen it.
It's too early to tell what immediate impact, if any, the new TPS designation for Venezuelans will have for the city, as many of them still have to sign up and then wait to be approved.
I'm joined today with one of my dear friends, Reverend Emma Lozano, who is the senior pastor of the Lincoln United Methodist Church. She's the vice president of League of United Latin American Citizens in the Midwest. And so we are proud to have her. I want to have a conversation about this whole idea of migrants and how particularly the Black and Brown community are faced with this crisis in Chicago, in border cities, from Texas and all around, as well as in New York and Los Angeles. So Reverend Lozano, give us an overview of the difference between the migrants and those who have been in America for more than 30 years.
First and foremost, those that are coming in, the refugees that have come in from the Ukraine or Afghanistan after Biden stopped the war, those people had to come here. And now we're getting a huge number of Venezolanos from Venezuela that are also coming into the country. Close to, if I'm not mistaken, 1 million have come in and they're getting workers permits. They're getting a lot of resources, and, and people who come, in need and desperation. Of course, the U.S. should do those things. But what they have not done is for the Mexican community and the immigrant community that's been living here for decades. And it always, to me, very close to my heart when they call us illegals, because originally the half of the United States was Mexico. And for us to be illegal on this land, especially Texas, Arizona, California, all of the Arizona, all of that was Mexico. And right now, what we're living today is we're seeing an influx, a million people coming into the country where they're welcomed, and we're still considered illegal. We have mixed status families.
Hold on. So when you say a million people are coming in
Have
today,
come in,
and they're welcomed, what is the difference in the welcoming of what we're now referring to as migrants, and when your ancestors and others have come to the United States?
Well, the difference is,
what did they have to do when they first came in and they were not at the border in this?
Well, right now, how they came in was because President Biden instructed his immigration director, which is Mayorkas, to provide them and offer that or grant them parole. So they get into this country in a legal format. We've been here for decades, and we've been told that we have to wait until there's a bipartisan bill by Republicans and Democrats in both the House and in the Senate in order for us to get some kind of relief, some immigration reform. We have more than 11 million people living in this country for decades that have not been able to legalize their status. They have U.S. citizen spouses, they have U.S. citizen children, dreamer kids, and then we have dreamers that under Obama, they were given the opportunity to apply for DACA, deferred action. And this meant that they could get a worker's permit and that they were here in a legal format. And that was stopped in the court. But now with this new influx of all of these new migrants or refugees that are coming in, what we found out is that you don't need a vote in Congress. President Biden can just parole, the people that have been here for decades.
When you say parole, the migrants that are coming in and are given work visas, they're getting the work visas or work permits based on this concept of parole, right?
Exactly.
Is that an executive order that Biden has issued?
No, the concept of parole or the parole programs have existed since 1950s. And they exist for when there's a need or when there's a public demand. Right now, there's a job shortage in the United States. So they parole people so that they could fill those jobs, so that the economy give that the economy the boost that it needs, because there's a job shortage right now. But what we're seeing there's a worker shortage to fill jobs. I mean, exactly, a worker shortage where we have plenty of and we need workers to fill those jobs, right? So this is a time where, they're saying, we could parole in these people and then they could fill those jobs, but they're forgetting that there's people already here working, and those people have been here for decades, and they were promised that they would be able to get some kind of solution so they could live here in a legal format, because they're considered undocumented, or many say illegals, right? So that's been now you have an issue where you have people that were here for decades watching as new people that came here as recent as July received their workers permits, right? And they've been waiting for decades and they haven't gotten it because they were promised, but they said that we had to wait until there was an act of Congress, which is obviously not true.
This concept of parole has been used for, was it used for prison inmates or just for refugees and persons who entered the country?
It's for people who enter the country and who have been in the country considered undocumented. There's different parole there's advanced parole, there's parole in place, and parole in place means that those that are here could get paroled and they could get their workers' permits. So that's what we're asking for right now. We're asking to be included in what Biden has granted already, all of these new migrants and refugees.
Where are the migrants and refugees coming from, to your knowledge? I know you've been going back and forth to the border in the last several weeks.
Right. The migrants right now are coming from by large part by the Venezuela. They're Venezolanos. They're coming here, and now in Chicago they're being bused from Texas, from the governor over there, because they're playing politics with these people, and they're sending them to the sanctuary cities, or they're sending them to the blue states. Especially what I'm noticing is where they have a Black mayor, so that they could cause this conflict, and there's resources that are being provided, and because they're coming in so quickly and there's little planning or time to plan, some of them are being placed in communities where the resources that were there for that community are being replaced by these migrants. And that's where the hostility, that's where, the conflict comes, because you should not rob Peter to pay Paul. We should find a way to resolve this issue. And we should all understand that right now that they're playing politics, and they're using these people right now. But to me, the blessing is for us, the Mexicanos that have been here for decades and decades, that because they came in, we were able to realize that Biden and all of what they were telling us, we don't need an act of Congress. He just needs to include us in this parole program, and we can be here in a legal format. We've already been here, we're paying taxes, and this is life-changing. It's historic for us. And it doesn't take a vote, because right now it would be impossible to get a vote in Congress because of the complex situation and, just a right-wing kind of white supremacist members of Congress right now, that it would, an anti-immigrant, right? So anti-people of color, that is going on. So the parole is really the avenue that we believe is the right way.
And so you and the National LULAC are meeting with the Rainbow Push Coalition this coming week. And what you've talked to me before, and you've been talking to us about a Black-Brown coalition, which we had many years ago and over the years. Why do you think that's important in this crisis?
I think it's so important because I feel that politically, the cities that are being targeted are the cities that have Black mayors. California, Chicago, New York, all of these cities are being targeted where they're basically sending all the migrants to cause this kind of conflict between our communities, and to find, and there should be enough resources for all of us. But first and foremost, we need to understand that the government, the federal government, has responsibility, because if they wouldn't have imposed sanctions on Venezuela, those people would not have had to leave, because that's an oil country. It's a rich country with petróleo, right? So why would they need help from anyone? But if you put sanctions and they can't trade, with the European countries, and that what you're doing, you're crippling their economy, and you give them no choice. And it causes a lot of unrest in your own country. And then these people flee, and then they come here. And because you don't have a relationship, because you have sanctions on that country, you can't deport them. So therefore, you have to accept them. And to me, it's like the largest government human trafficking scheme that I've ever seen. And then they send them to the cities that have Black mayors to cause this conflict between our two communities. And that is just, an evil thing to do, but we should be able to recognize that so that we can call on the federal government to take on their responsibility. They created the situation, and therefore they should pay for it. Where were the Ukrainians when they came? You don't see them staying at police stations. The Afghanistans after the war, tens of thousands of them came to this country. Where are they? But still today, they're still deporting our green card veterans that, like Miguel Perez Jr. from my church, Mexicano. He was a permanent resident. He fought 2 terms in Afghanistan. And then when he returned with PTSD and he caught a case, they deported him. But we just let in tens of thousands of Afghanis. Do you see the hypocritical way that they deal with us? And then they send these people, the Venezolanos, here to Chicago, where we have a Black mayor, and then they go into Black communities, and then it causes conflict. But we don't need to fall into that trap ourselves. But what we have to do is we have to be very forceful for that the federal government, they're responsible, and they're the ones that need to resolve this crisis.
Well, I want to thank you so much. We look forward to the meeting with the National League of Citizens, LULAC, United Citizens, Latin American Citizens, LULAC. We'll be meeting with them and Rainbow Push. We cannot have a division between African Americans and our brown brothers and sisters. And so we're going to work on that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. See you Monday.
We're excited to get more people engaged and involved in Rainbow Push, supporting the programs of Push for Excellence and the Citizenship Education Fund. Now, if you're interested in public policy and you want to help change the policies that impact those who are incarcerated, you can do so. If you're interested in impacting public policies that benefit education and businesses with social economic solutions, you can do that as well. You can become a policymaker by becoming a member of Rainbow Push right now. Now, if you believe in the scholarships that we've given to thousands of students each year, you can help us out. We've awarded more than $10 million in scholarships year to date. Now, you can help young people achieve a higher education by becoming a member of Rainbow Push right now for the annual fee of only $35. And if you're a student or a senior, it's only $15. You can help us make a difference in the lives of millions. Now, if you watch us every week, or if you listen to us on the radio, or if you're viewing on social media, we need you to become a member. And how do you become a member? It's simple. Visit us at rainbowpush.org and press join. Maybe you'd like to support the work of Push. If so, it's really simple. You can do so by texting the word PUSH, that's P-U-S-H, to 41444 on your cell phone, and you can give any amount that you feel comfortable giving, or you can call us at 773-256-2775 or go to rainbowpush.org and push donate. So whenever you want to support, you can do it from anywhere. So keep pushing, because we're going to keep pushing for you and keep hope alive.
Black women, always putting others before ourselves.
Sometimes we get so caught up too as mothers and caregivers that we forget to take care of ourselves, and we're first.
Much like everyone else in 2020, Karita Robinson says she was putting off annual checkups. It was even more difficult to get one during the pandemic. After a routine check, eventually she was diagnosed with breast cancer. After 8 rounds of chemo and a double mastectomy, 6 months later, she felt a lump.
I got it checked out, and it turns out that it was not a seroma. It was, in fact, cancer yet again.
Then more chemo and more radiation. Just as things were getting back to normal, another curveball.
Cancer once again had come back, and this time it has spread to my left lung.
And when it's finally time for Black women to start putting themselves first and speaking up, it can fall on deaf ears.
Sometimes when we do go to the doctor, our concerns are kind of overlooked. And that was my experience initially.
It's a common experience for Black women. A study with the National Library of Medicine found high levels of discrimination in the medical field.
By me being a medical professional, it also helps so I could be an advocate for my own health.
My mother, Calvinia Bowles, has been a respiratory therapist for over 30 years. She's urging Black women to take charge. She was diagnosed with triple-negative breast cancer, the same diagnosis as Robinson 1 year later. For the both of these survivors, had it not been for advocates in their corner, each other, and a support system, this journey would have been much more difficult. And their message to other Black women is to make your health a priority, as it likely saved their lives.
Black women in particular need to take that initiative to go out and find the resources to get a mammogram. Don't put that off ever.
Hi, I'm State Senator Maddie Hunter from the 3rd Legislative District of Illinois. I am here as a voice for those affected by breast cancer. In the spirit of Breast Cancer Awareness Month, I would like to address a crucial aspect of this battle: early detection. Breast cancer is a disease that knows no boundaries. It affects our mothers, daughters, sisters, friends, and colleagues. Breast cancer in men, which rare, accounts for about 1% of all diagnoses. Data shows that breast cancer rates among Black and white women are close, but the mortality rate are notably different. Black women have a 40% higher death rate from breast cancer than a greater disparity among women under age 50. Socioeconomic and other factors account for these disparities. Black women are statistically more likely to have diabetes, heart disease, and other health issues that are risk factors for breast cancer, and are disproportionately affected by more aggressive subtypes of cancer. Additionally, Black women face inadequate access to health care or insurance coverage. In Illinois, breast cancer is the #1 most common cancer in women. We all know someone who has faced this challenging journey, but there's hope with early detection. The earlier we catch breast cancer, the better our chances of overcoming it. Those who catch breast cancer in its earliest stages have a much higher chance of survival. That's why it's crucial to prioritize regular screenings. But not everyone has access to these life-saving screenings. Many women in Illinois lack health insurance or cannot afford regular mammograms. However, there are resources to help and even places to receive a free mammogram and exams. The Illinois Breast and Cervical Cancer Program offers free mammograms, breast exams, and pap smears to eligible women. Those diagnosed with cancer through the program screening are eligible to receive free treatment. If you or anyone you know is uninsured or underinsured, please consider contacting the Illinois Department of Public Health to get the support you need. Some communities may face barriers when it comes to accessing care. Mobile mammograms unit helps those who are unable to travel or who are not located near healthcare facilities. These units, like the mobile unit through Sarah, Bush, Lincoln, it travels all across the state, reaching underinsured areas. Breast cancer awareness is not just a campaign, it's a call to action. There's a way you can support breast cancer research and services here in Illinois. The Illinois Lottery's Carolyn Adams Ticket for the Cure is a scratch-off ticket that has raised over $15 million for breast cancer awareness, education, and research in Illinois. Carolyn Adams was a friend and a diligent public servant who bravely fought breast cancer. I was proud to lead the creation of the Ticket for the Cure and honor her memory through its success. The next time you're out, consider supporting these efforts by purchasing a Ticket for the Cure. And don't forget, early detection saves lives. By spreading awareness, promoting early detection, and supporting those in need, we can fight this terrible disease.
People often ask, why should I vote? And to be honest, voting is a sacred right. And if it wasn't so important, then there would not have been a distinctive effort to minimize one's vote. So while the 2024 election may seem far away, it really is right around the corner. So I want to encourage you to start thinking to yourself, do I have my voter plan together? Do I know where my polling location is? Do I know who's going to be on the ballot this election? And don't just ask this question of yourselves, but I want to encourage you to talk to your family and friends about this as well. Because here's the thing, voting is the one way in which you can actively participate in bringing about the change that you want to see. But to be completely honest with you, voting alone is not enough. It is so important that those of us who can and are willing to do so, that we put forth the effort to assist those in our community who might have challenges at the polls. So if you are interested in assisting others, then I would like to encourage you to participate in election protection. There are so many components to the election protection program. We have a hotline of volunteers who answer questions for those who call in, but we also have an election protection program where we have poll monitors and we have poll watchers. And this is where you can actively participate in your community and be at the polls to assist voters and to monitor what's going on at all times. If this is something that you are interested in, please reach out to us at Common Cause Illinois, where we would love to talk to you more about the program that we have. As I mentioned, it seems like the primaries are far away, but they are just around the corner. So make sure that you're prepared and that you have everything together for you to be able to vote. And the very first step that you need to take to do that is make sure that you're registered. But please be an active participant in this upcoming election, and don't just stop at voting. Try to find some of the various ways that you can get involved, whether it's election protection or other programs that might be out there. And if you yourself are a voter who runs into issues at the polls, then please be sure that around election time and during early voting, that you reach out to the hotline 866-OUR-VOTE, and someone will be there to assist you.
Hello, my name is Frederique Desrosiers. I'm the policy manager at Chicago Votes, and I'm here today to talk to you about voting in prison. So, I will start by saying that voting is one of the most fundamental practices of our democracy. And denying the right to vote to an entire class of citizens is deeply problematic, undemocratic, and counterproductive to reentry. As you know, in Illinois, we have almost 30,000 people who are incarcerated. And if you include people in federal prison, we have close to 40,000 people incarcerated in our state and federal prisons. People in prison are the last remaining group of citizens that are disenfranchised in Illinois. The Illinois legislature has the power to clarify language in the Illinois Constitution to change that. One of my favorite poets, June Jordan, has a quote where she says that the health, legitimacy, and governing force of each country should be evaluated by the experience of those who are the most powerless in our society. And she challenges us to do whatever we can to change what we cannot accept, and as a result, change our destiny. So we would be remiss if we didn't acknowledge a whole group of individuals who have been locked out of the American dream, literally and figuratively. Right now, there's a lot of talk about public safety, so let's talk about that a little bit. Having the right to vote and the act of voting are related to increased public safety. People whose voter rights are restored post-incarceration had lower rates of recidivism than their counterparts, and having the right to vote shapes the reentry experience and is linked to intentions to remain crime-free. So we know that when people are part of a community, when they feel connected to their community, they're less likely to harm their community, right? Excluding people from voting based on their conviction does not advance public safety in any way. It's not a deterrent. It doesn't support reentry. One thing to note is that 95% of people who go to prison return to their communities. Civic engagement, specifically voting, increases the ability for reintegration. Also, people who are in prison have families on the outside. 80% of women in prison are mothers. The families of those impacted by incarceration are affected by the decisions made by our elected officials. And therefore, people in prison should be able to influence the electoral process. Another thing we know is that civil death precipitates civil invisibility. And in the area of incarceration policy specifically, IDOC has been declared to be operating in an unconstitutional manner at various times. Terrible conditions, water with Legionella in it, abuse. And so we know that they have not provided adequate treatment plans for mental health folks. And so why would we not want the perspectives of the people who have been the most affected by these conditions to be a part of the conversation on what we can do to fix it? Another thing is that it allows people in prison, their issues are going unaddressed because there's no power structure or anyone that they can hold accountable. And so the needs of disenfranchised people are not often considered by elected officials. So they have no leverage to push candidates to back issues they care about, like free education, restoring federal Pell Grants to pay for college education in prison, or reducing long sentences. And this exclusion is especially acute for Black and low-income people who are disproportionately swept up into our criminal justice system. Our country was founded on the belief that people should not be taxed without representation. When purchasing items from commissary, people in prisons are paying a 25% tax on items. They are being taxed and not represented. We know that in the past, taking voting rights away, specifically from Black communities, was a tool used to strip political power away from Black and brown communities. And so whether or not that is the intention, that is the effect that we're currently seeing right now. Felony disenfranchisement disproportionately affects Black and brown folks and low-income folks. So if we are serious about liberty and justice for all, we will take the steps needed to pass our voting in prison bill in Illinois, House Bill 39. The Illinois legislature has had this bill in front of them for many sessions now and has not taken any action. And so it is time for us to organize and push forward for a truly inclusive democracy and society. Thank you.
A crowd of supporters came with Crystal Mason to the Second Court of Appeals in Fort Worth today to help send a message.
Goal number one, that our votes matter. And number two, we will not stand for any kind of voter suppression or intimidation.
Through the years, there have been rallies for Crystal Mason as she appealed the 2018 conviction and 5-year prison sentence for voting illegally. She was on supervised release from a previous federal tax law violation when she cast a provisional ballot that was never counted in the 2016 election with help from a poll worker.
That's what blew my mind when I first heard of this case. I was like, well, if the poll worker didn't know better, how could she?
The highest Texas Court of Criminal Appeals sent the case back here on that one remaining question. Did she actually know it was illegal to vote that day?
She did not know. I think everyone recognized that she had nothing to gain and everything to lose from casting that provisional ballot. There's no reason whatsoever that she would have done so.
Good morning, Rainbow Push family. Welcome to another edition of Saturday Morning Forum right here on the Word Network, as well as our various streaming platforms. I am excited today to greet you. I think all of you are aware of the fact that Rainbow Push was birthed as a result of the historic campaigns of Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson in 84 and 88. Next year, we will commemorate 40 years since that amazing campaign that literally transformed not just the Democratic Party, but democracy in this country. In 1984 and 1988, between those two campaigns, the Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson Sr. registered some 7 to 9 million new voters now able to participate in the democratic process. And we recognize that is so vital because in a democracy, it's one person, one vote. That is the great equalizer in democracy, that everyone has an opportunity to vote. But check this, when Reverend Jackson did that, Reverend Jackson was doing that having come out of a civil rights movement that resulted in the 65 passage of the Voting Rights Bill. But of course, we all know a huge price was paid for us to secure the right to vote. We think about those countless individuals, both famous and somewhat anonymous, who found themselves going to prison, going to jail, simply because they wanted the right to vote in a democracy. What a novel concept. And one would think, after the passage of the Voting Rights Bill, one would think, after the victories of the Civil Rights Movement, that we would now, some 40 years after the historic campaigns of Reverend Jackson, 60 years almost, next year or the year after next will represent 60 years since the passage of the Voting Rights Bill. But we all know that just because you achieve a victory, it does not mean that the struggle does not continue. I had the privilege several years ago of meeting this amazing sister, Crystal Mason, along with her phenomenal attorney, Attorney Kim T. Cole. And I was blown away when I got wind of the fact that Crystal Mason, in 2016, I believe was the year, Crystal Mason found herself sentenced to prison for 5 years for casting a vote on a provisional ballot. Crystal did not know that she was not ineligible to vote. On top of that, the person presiding over her voting precinct did not tell her that she did not have the right to vote. Crystal, check this, just a couple of weeks ago, achieved something phenomenal. This sister, with all she's been through and having to deal with the court system in this country, did not stop getting her education. And just a few weeks ago, Crystal Mason received her undergraduate, her bachelor's degree. And we congratulate you, Crystal. And so I thought it would be very important for us to get to know Crystal, but also to hear from her, to hear from Attorney Kim Cole as we get ready for 2024. And we have right here the embodiment of one who has experienced voter intimidation, and her case, I submit, Attorney Cole, is an example of how Texas is doing everything in its power. Let me say Greg Abbott's Texas is doing everything in its power to intimidate Black voters, voters who perhaps would not vote for certain people. And Crystal Mason is a case, not just of voter suppression, but voter intimidation. Attorney Kim Cole has served as the attorney of record for Crystal Mason. Attorney Kim Cole is a brilliant sister who has always used her privilege as an attorney in order to, instead of making a lot of money for herself, and then we'll get her testimony as she shares that she basically made up her mind that life is not so much about doing well, but doing good. And Attorney Kim Cole, you've done that. Just give us, am I on point when I talk about this case of Crystal Mason as a case of voter intimidation?
Absolutely, Pastor Haynes. And you essentially, I would say, summarized the state's closing argument. In Crystal's trial, the prosecutor specifically said, "Judge, I want you to send the voters a message and sentence Miss Mason to a stern prison sentence." If that's not voter intimidation, I don't know what is. So that's what the state specifically requested.
To send the voters a message. Wow.
Yeah.
This is, wow. In the 21st century, United States of America, there are those who want to send the voters a message. Speaking of voter, Crystal Mason, share with those who may not know the background of your case. What happened? Why is it that you went to vote and then were told you weren't even told, you went to vote and then later on you found out that you had broken the law? Tell us what happened. Give us the backdrop.
I did federal time. So once I came home from the feds, I've been living in my house since '08, and came back to my home and went back to the same place I went to vote in 2016. And when I got there, I was talking to a young man, and he told me that my name wasn't on the list. I was confused about that, but I'm thinking maybe because I just came home, things wasn't updated. So I turned around and I got ready to leave, and someone told me I can fill out a provisional ballot. And I asked them what was that, and they told me if I'm at the right location, it'll count, and if I'm not, it won't. So I was like, okay, I did that, and I got my ID out. I matched everything up, and I gave it to a lady. She walked away and had me to come sit at the table to fill out everything. Once I did that, I went to the booth and I told her I wanted to do a straight ticket, and she stepped out the way and showed me which way to do it and left, and everything was fine. I later received a call from my supervised release officer, and she asked me to come in. And I did. I went up there. I'm thinking maybe this is a random UA or just a in person, just want to see me, because on federal, you don't report. We just fill out a form every month online. So I went up there and she was like, hi. And I was like, okay. And that was it. Once I went back downstairs to go to now from leaving work to go to school, a lady stopped me and she said, are you Crystal Mason? I said, I am. She said, go ahead and put your hands behind your back. You're being arrested for illegally voting. And I was like, but I didn't illegally vote. I didn't illegally vote. I filled out everything. I was thinking about my ID. Like, I filled out everything that's on my driver's license.
Right.
Correct. And she said, you're on probation. You can't vote. And I was like, okay, now we're at the right location. Let's go up here and let's talk to my supervised release officer and let's get this clarified. I went to jail. And once I went to jail, they offered me 10 years and I declined it. Then they offered me 10 years deferred adjudicate. I declined it. I went to trial. My supervised release officer supervisor testified on the stand and said, no, we never told Crystal she was ineligible to vote. No, she never filled out anything. And yet the judge sentenced me to 5 years for illegally voting.
Wow. 5 years for illegally voting. Did you serve any time?
Haven't served any time yet. I did. I'm out right now, still today, almost going on 6 years on an appeal bond on this case. Because I was convicted of this case, I had to go back to federal and I had to do 10 months for violating and catching a new offense.
Wow.
So I had to do 10 months.
Wow. Wow. So you have been through so much, and now we are in the process, we're in the appeal process. Attorney Kim Cole, explain to the audience, what does that mean? What does it look like? What are we waiting for next?
So it's gone, it's been in the appellate process for quite a while. At first, the Second Court of Appeals upheld Crystal's conviction, and we appealed it to the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, which is the highest court in Texas for criminal cases. And we appealed it to them, and they sent it back. They told the Second Court of Appeals that they misinterpreted the law and said, hey, you might want to take a second look at this with the correct interpretation of the law, because here in Texas, felons do have the right to vote. However, they have to have completed their sentence. And also, the crime isn't in voting and not being eligible. The crime is in knowing that you're not eligible and voting anyway. And Crystal had no clue that she was not eligible to vote. Nobody told her, and she had no idea that she was not eligible to vote. However, the Second Court of Appeals, the first go around, said that it didn't matter if she knew or not. And so when it went to the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, they said, you misinterpreted the law. The law requires that she have known at that time that she was not eligible to vote. And so they sent it back to the Second Court of Appeals, and we had oral arguments on that matter in April of this year. We are still awaiting a ruling on that. And they can reverse Crystal's her sentence, or they can uphold it, and in any event, we will go and appeal it again to the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, because there's absolutely no way, if they do like the Court of Criminal Appeals said and apply the right interpretation of the law, which requires that Crystal know, this case will not be upheld. So we fully anticipate they will follow the instruction of the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals and apply the right interpretation of the law and overturn Crystal's conviction.
Right, right. We will be pushing for that, praying for that. Crystal, one of the things that Reverend Jackson has often talked about, he talks about turning pain into power. You have turned pain into power on purpose. And so it's so exciting to know that you have literally, again, completed your undergraduate degree. And then you are, talk to us about the, I call it a ministry, but you literally are engaged in fighting for justice for others, but at the same time, you were trying to ensure that everyone has the right to vote. Talk to us about what you have created, what you have birthed out of the labor pain of this horrific experience where the state of Texas said, we want to teach a lesson to everyone. What they intended for evil, you're bringing about some good. Talk to us about the work you're doing.
If you go back and look at my very first interview, it was with Kim T. Cole, attorney Kim T. Cole, Dominique, and attorney Allison Grinter. The first things came out my mouth was, I will never vote again.
Wow.
I will never vote again. I will not do anything to leave my kids. I will never vote again. And I was seeing it on TV. Yeah. And I had to realize that's exactly what they want me to do.
Yeah.
I'm actually, they want to discourage the Black and the brown from voting. So I realized right then and there that that's not the message I want to send. So I started my organization, Crystal Mason, a fight against voter suppression. I registered I had 12 members of my family registered. And we were out here in the street educating and talking to people that have had past convictions, that was confused, that was saying, oh, I'm a felon, I can't vote. And I'm like, well, how long have you've been off parole or probation? And it could be years, but because of what they thought and they believed, that's when I wanted to try to educate people and tell them how important it was. Because you got to remember, the judge, the DA, the prosecutor, they're all elected officials. And this is who did this to me.
Right. And so here you are in these streets, registering people to vote, educating people about their vote and how important their vote is. What can we at Rainbow Push do to support your efforts?
Only thing I can ask you to do is just let people know how to keep doing what you're doing. Just let people know how important it is to vote. Yeah. Because if you don't, you'll be caught up in a situation like I was. And it's just so grateful that God put the right people in my life, you, Freddie Haynes, and my attorney. So if I'm confused about something, some kind of questioning anything, talking to someone, I can reach out to one of my attorneys to get the correct information. So I'm just grateful to be a part of this fight right now.
And we're grateful that you've taken up the fight. Thank you so much. Attorney Kim T. Cole, please tell us, is there anything we can do in the Rainbow Push community and family to support the efforts to ensure that Crystal gets fully exonerated? I know we're waiting. We're in the appellate process. Is there anything we can do?
Absolutely. You can encourage people to put the right folks in place. Number one, vote. I mean, that's so important. I'm so proud of Crystal. I just gotta tell, I'm so proud of her because I remember that first interview. And I told her, look, everybody that had a role in this is an elected official, and you've got to exercise your right to vote. I mean, exercise your right to vote, and also encourage people to serve on juries. I can't say that enough. I'm an attorney. It is a rare occasion that I see folks that look like us on the jury. And that's how laws get made. That's how laws get changed, actually. And so we need to make sure that people that look like us, if we want justice for not just Crystal and others in her position, we have to make sure that we involve ourselves in the process at every step of the way. That includes serving on juries. That includes, first of all, registering to vote, because most of the courts obtain their jury pool from voter registrations. That's where they get the names of people that they draw for juries. So register to vote. And also, if you get a jury summons, show up and serve and, and perform your civic duty. I know it doesn't pay much, but it's really, really helpful, especially in cases like Crystal's. Had she selected a jury, who knows, there might have been a totally different outcome. And also, one thing that Crystal did not mention, she's so humble, but you guys can contribute to the cause. She does have a nonprofit organization that is committed to educating voters about their rights and in registering people to vote. And that absolutely has an impact, not only on her case, but across the country. Encourage people to serve as registrars and register, take people with them to the polls, take people to get registered. Just involve yourself in the process, because our vote is our voice. And if we don't vote, we are silenced. And so we need to let folks know that we have a voice in this, and we need to participate in the process every step of the way. And last but not least, pray. People can pray that these judges in the Second Court of Appeals correctly interprets the law this time and correctly apply it to Crystal's case and overturn her conviction.
Right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Crystal Mason, you have been absolutely heroic, and I want to thank you and salute you for turning pain into power, but also to purpose. We support your organization. Attorney Kim T. Cole, thank you for showing us that, you can do well, but it's most important that you do good. So thank you for the good that you continue to do. Rainbow Push family, don't forget what Attorney Kim T. Cole said. The state, in their closing argument, decided to send a message. Voter intimidation, voter suppression, the state decided to send a message. Sadly, don't think this is limited to what happens in Texas. Understand the insight from our Senator, Reverend Raphael Warnock, who said, we live in a nation where some people just don't want some people to vote. I think you get who he's talking about. Crystal Mason has been to hell and back, but God gave her a round trip ticket. And what she's doing now is converting what she's been through as a means of being used so that through her, we can in reality have a true democracy. And so what we should be doing now is recognizing that a judge, that an attorney said, we want to send a message. Guess what? We can send a message ourselves. So let's send a message by registering to vote. Let's send a message by registering everyone we know to vote. Let's send a message by not only registering to vote, but let's educate ourselves about the issues and understand when Kim T. Cole says your vote is your voice, clear your throat, speak up. And when you speak up through your vote, you can say, I want access, equitable access to education for our children. I want culturally responsive education. Your voice can say that when you vote. You can also say everyone should have an opportunity to get the same kind of health care that our congresspersons get in Washington, D.C. Let's send a message. Let's send a message for economic opportunity for all. Let's send a message that basically says this is a country that is at its best when all of us have the opportunity to participate. Let's send a message that the criminal justice system can no longer afford to be criminal and unjust, but instead it must be one of liberty and justice for all. Let's send a message. They thought they were sending a message when they sentenced Crystal Mason to prison. Crystal said, oh no, I'm going to convert my pain into power and purpose. Crystal is sending a message with all that she's been through. In the name of Fannie Lou Hamer, in the name of Nelson Mandela, in the name of Martin King, can we send a message to a system and those in the system who are determined that the system not work for us, but only for the few? Let's send a message that neo-fascism is not going to have the last word. Democracy is going to have the last word. I think it was Taylor Branch who said that Black people have been most victimized by the hypocrisy in the practice of democracy in this nation. And yet we have believed most in what it means to live in a democracy and have fought for it. And so I ask you, in the name of Crystal Mason, in the name of Kim T. Cole, in the name of Fannie Lou Hamer, Martin King, John Lewis, and all of those who got in good trouble, let's send a message. Vote, register to vote, vote intelligently, and don't let anybody in your crew not be registered to vote, because Crystal Mason has turned pain into power and purpose, and she's sending a message, and that's what we are about. God bless you, and make sure you have a great weekend. Peace.
So thank you for joining us on our Saturday morning forum. Be sure to visit our website at rainbowpush.org. You'll also want to visit all of our social media platforms so that you can gain additional information about all that we have going on in the organization. And equally important, we appreciate your ongoing support. Feel free to take that cell phone of yours and hold it to the QR code on the screen and give on the spot. Or take that same cell phone and text the word PUSH to 41444. Or you can simply go to our website at rainbowpush.org and click on the